Okay, so what if I told you that the gospel was preached to every creature under heaven? The gospel was preached to the entire earth in the first century. So this is Jesus speaking in Acts 1:8. He says, but you will receive power. He's talking to his disciples. So the you in here is the disciples, but you, the disciples, will receive power and ability when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. He's talking to the disciples, and you will be my witnesses to tell people about me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth. You also have in Mark chapter 16, he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. But what was the world to Jesus and the disciples? It was this. This is what the Israelites, this is what the Jews in the first century and before, this is what they thought the world was. So this is ancient Israelite cosmology. This is how the Israelites used to view the world. They used to think that the earth was flat. They used to think that underneath of this flat earth was the land of the dead. It was called Sheol. Underneath of Sheol, the earth sat on pillars, and wrapped around the pillars was this giant snake called Leviathan. Technically, Leviathan is a dragon, but whatever. They also thought that the earth was below this firmament. Now, the firmament, it was this metal dome, and it had windows inside of it, and people used to believe that when the sun came up, the sun would go through the windows, and it would traverse through the sky and back, and this is why it would rain outside. They didn't know that water came from clouds. They thought that water came from the sky because the sky is blue, and so when it rained outside and when water came to the earth, they thought that the water passed through these windows in the sky. No, I don't actually believe this. I don't actually think this is actually how the world is. I am just explaining how they used to believe the world was to them. And we know this is what the Israelites believed because this is what their Babylonian neighbors believed about the world, their Egyptian neighbors, Sumerian neighbors, and so on. But how does that answer the question of how the gospel was preached to the entire world? Okay. So remember when Jesus said, you shall be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, and to the ends of the earth? Well, the ends of the earth to Jesus and his disciples in the first century, it would have been right here. It would have been Spain. Spain was the end of the known world to the disciples and to Jesus. You can actually see what Jesus was actually talking about in his mind. So this is Bethlehem. This is where Jesus was born at. This is Jerusalem. This is Judea, right? And this is all a part of Asia Minor. And from Judea and Jerusalem, if you go all the way up here, you get to the ends of the earth. This is Spain. So when Jesus is telling his disciples to preach the gospel from Jerusalem, Judea, into the ends of the earth, and he tells them to preach the gospel to the cosmos, when he tells them to preach the gospel to all the inhabitants of the known world, this was the known world to Jesus and the disciples. Because remember this nifty little image right here, which, by the way, in the New Testament, when Jesus walks on water and the disciples think that Jesus is a ghost, yeah, the reason they think he's a ghost is because Jesus is walking on the thing where the Israelites used to believe demons came out of. So the disciples think that Jesus is a water-walking demon because in their view of the world, they think he's walking on the thing where demons come out of, which is why you see in the New Testament, Legion says to Jesus, don't cast us into the abyss, and the abyss was beyond the sea. Don't cast us beyond the sea, because the place that was beyond the sea was the land of the dead, where they thought demons and ghosts and dead spirits went to, which I talk about in my books. If you do not have my book, Secrets of the Bible from the East, you need to go to the link in my bio and get my books that talk about this stuff in way more detail than I can talk about in this video. The discount code today is READ. My books are ebooks, so you don't have to wait for my books to come in the mail. They'll be immediately emailed to you. My books have a list of bibliographies and citations from other academics in the field, so you can know exactly where I'm getting this information from. My books do come in bundles, and the discount code today is READ. So So this is a 6th century BC map of how people back then saw the world in the Roman Empire. And this is how they saw the world. They saw the world from their perspective. There was Asia, there was Europe, there was Libya, and there was nothing else out there. This is a 1st century map that sort of shows the same thing. Same thing. This is what they think the known world is. They think the known world is Europe, Asia, and Libya. And so when Jesus is talking about spreading the gospel to the known world, he's talking about spreading the gospel to the known world of the Roman Empire. Now, the funny thing is the word gospel, euangelion, that's Greek for gospel. The term gospel originally didn't have anything to do with Jesus. The term gospel actually was a song, some scholars think, that the Romans would sing after they had a battle. And the gospel was the good news of how the Romans, more specifically the Caesar, brought peace to the Roman world. That Caesar specifically being Caesar Augustus. You see, Caesar Augustus, he originally was known as the son of God, but not the son of Yahweh. He was the son of Julius Caesar. So originally, the good news, it was originally the good news of Caesar Augustus. And so Jesus and his disciples, they hijack that term and they reinvented, they polemicized it in a spiritual sense for Jesus's ministry. So in the 1st century, when Rome was taking over the Roman world, the Roman Empire would send out squadrons or people that they would call churches. Now, a church was a squadron or was a group of Romans who would come preaching the good news of Caesar Augustus as they were taking over the Roman world. So these churches were led by a person named an apostle. Apostle literally means sent one or one who is sent. And so these apostles would come with a church, or they would come with a group of people from place to place, and they would come with the gospel message of Caesar Augustus and how that Caesar Augustus is coming, or his kingdom is coming. The kingdom of Caesar Augustus is coming. And here are the benefits of being a citizen in that kingdom. And if you accept these terms, then everything will be great and you will get to enjoy the benefits of being in this kingdom. But if you don't, then we, the Roman Empire, we will come back and we will destroy you. Is that starting to sound familiar? Because this is what Jesus and his followers do in the 1st century. They take the message of Caesar Augustus and they turn it on his head so they can fire shots against the Roman Empire. Jesus' message is, Caesar Augustus is not the son of God. I'm the son of God, says Jesus. And Rome didn't bring peace to the world. I will bring peace to the world when I bring my kingdom. And here are the benefits of being in my kingdom, which Paul talks about. Paul talks about being a citizen of heaven. And if you did not accept those terms of that kingdom, then Jesus would come back and destroy them. Now, remind you, the message of judgment, it wasn't about anybody today. The judgment that Jesus was talking about, the wrath that was to come, was for 1st century Jerusalem, because they rejected his kingdom first, which is why in turn the gospel message was then sent out to the Gentiles. Now Paul says, if you continue in your faith established and firm and do not move from the hope held out in the gospel, this is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, have become a servant. So Paul says that he preached the gospel to the entire world, which was the cosmos or the oikumene, right here. The gospel was preached to the entire world in the 1st century. And when Jerusalem didn't accept that gospel message, Jesus did come back in judgment, the judgment of his Father, the coming of his kingdom. Share this video around, and don't forget to get the books in my bio. You might not see me again, so follow me.